Good evening, everybody. It is Wednesday, the 14th. The Wire is starting hot. We got to talk about a lot of things. We have the first male golfer from Japan to win a major, Hideki Matsuyama. We're going to be talking about what happened in Minneapolis a little bit and the teams involved. And we're also going to be talking about Evander Holyfield. Evander Holyfield? Man, I haven't heard that name in a while. You're listening to The Wire and you're watching. Stay tuned.
All right. We have a whole lot to get into, but I want to check on you guys. Got to check on my fellas. How we doing? How's your week going?
Starting off strong, man.
Good. Well, I hope you guys are ready because we have a whopper of a wire ready for you folks out there watching and listening. Let's get things started off with golf. I know we're all missing Marvin talking about some golf this week, but
Marvin and Tony,
they both love golf. We'll see them soon. So Hideki Matsuyama, first male golfer from Japan to win a major. First off, guys, what are your thoughts on him getting his first win in the majors here?
I mean, it's cool. Go ahead, Ty.
Yeah. I was just going to say it's great for him, great opportunity. That doesn't come so often. Being the first ever to do something is a big deal. So it'll go down in history for sure.
Yeah, I was just going to clarify. He's the first male Japanese player to win because there are two women that won. Chako Higuchi in 1977 and apparently Hanako Shibuno in 2019. But yeah, he's absolutely making history. Isao Aoki finished second to Jack Nicklaus in 1980. So he's the first male Japanese winner of a major. So it's cool stuff for sure.
Oh yeah, history making, absolutely. So a little insight on what all went down. Obviously, with COVID, everything is restricted, and so Matsuyama was virtually alone for this tournament, right? Because travel restrictions did prevent a large media presence from Japan. Do you think that this was, aid for him, kind of having to stay solitary and not have all that distraction around him? Do you think that helped him out?
I mean, for me, I'm going to say no, even though it is a mental game. It comes with being a professional at some point. I really do think, golfers they get the yips, but they get the yips internally. It's not the yips from the pressure of the gallery and things of that nature. It's just the stress they put on themselves, in my opinion, and honestly, this gentleman had to deal with a lot before. So in the 2011 Masters, he tried to play the amateur Masters in 2011. And it was just after an earthquake, a tsunami, and 3 nuclear reactors devastating an area in Japan where he was from. So this guy's dealt with a lot of travesty before and obviously dealing with COVID now. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not a possibility. And I'm sure there are some athletes, and maybe he's one of them, that would be it made it easier. But to me, when I think of golf, I think, from my perspective of someone who used to be on the course quite a bit, it's more so, you in that pin and staring at that hole, man. And I don't think anything else matters in that sense.
So you think it helped him at all?
Yeah, I have to agree. I don't think so. Being the way the game of golf is played, it's usually quiet. They promote being quiet when you swing and do that whole thing. It's not like he's a kicker, kicking the game winning shot. And there's 1,000 people yelling at you. Yeah. So it probably helped a little bit just for even more comfortability, but
One thing that, and I agree with you guys. I think golf is a sport where, maybe the pregame. I think maybe that it helped in the pregame. No distractions, complete focus. But actually, early on, he did mention to the press, and this is something I thought was interesting, last take on this story, that he thought that those first few shots were some of the worst shots that he'd ever put down course. And so he told media that he went to his car and he sat in his car and played video games on his cell phone to clear his mind and come back to the course. I thought that was pretty cool because as like a game nerd,
I do that at work.
Do you? Awesome.
Yeah, I have a stressful job, so sometimes I take my break and go play a quick game of I forgot what it's called, Marvel Strike Force, something like that. Doesn't take long.
Something where you can beat somebody up, or do you think he was playing solitaire? Just like, I'm gonna nail this one time.
I mean, he's Japanese, so it's one of two things. He's either playing solitaire and like super serious, or he's playing Mario. So it's like one or the other.
All right. Any more takes on Hideki Matsuyama before we push on?
All I'm going to say is congratulations, man. Again, that's the cool thing for the country. They've been playing golf for years. Jack Nicklaus also said the same thing, and he was very, happy for him. So that's a really cool thing.
Absolutely. All right. So we're going to move into boxing, something a little bit different here. We all know that Tyson just came back and fought Roy Jones Jr. We talked about it right here on the wire, how it was a little disappointing, if I remember correctly. Expedition, though, it's what you expect. Well, Evander Holyfield this week, I guess last week, came out and announced that he's officially going to fight Kevin McBride in an Expedition fight on June 5th, 2021. Now, fellas, I don't know if you remember this, but McBride is actually accredited to be the man that retired Mike Tyson, being the last. He defeated Iron Mike in his last professional fight in 2005. So, what do you guys, let's get things started off. We'll send it over to Sahi. Sahi, what do you make of this fight with Holyfield and McBride coming to light?
I hope it's just rumors. I really don't want to see Holyfield in the ring. Just the way he talks and the way he moves, it's like, even for exhibition, like, it's not going to be anything worth watching, really. I don't think so. Please just stay out of the ring, Holyfield. We love you. We know what you did all those years ago. And it just seems like he's trying to chase that Mike Tyson glory, the last guy to really take out Tyson, and he's going to defeat him so he looks like the bigger guy and maybe set up a fight with Tyson. Like, if Holyfield and Tyson were fighting, maybe that would be some interest. But you said, who's the guy?
Kevin McBride.
McBride? Yeah.
The last fight Tyson had professionally in 2005. Kevin
McBride doesn't have a huge legacy. Like, you'll say that name and most people won't know who you're talking about. No, Holyfield, stay out the ring, please.
Richie, what do you make of this craziness?
I mean, nobody cares. I'm sorry. Even the whole Evander Holyfield Tyson thing, when we were talking about it back then, come on, man. And honestly, realistically, I don't know how the shape Evander Holyfield's in, but Mike Tyson, as we've talked about before, does look to be in great shape. But come on, man. There's so many cooler boxing matches I'd love to see than this. I appreciate you bringing it up because this is kind of the point. Like, Evander, nobody cares. I'm sorry, nobody cares. Like, even if it was Mike Tyson, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Now, do you think, you kind of mentioned it, Sahi, do you think that this is all a ploy just to build hype for, there would be a lot of money in a Tyson-Holyfield rematch. I think we've said for the ear before here at H2G Studios, but is this all a build to get redemption here?
Is this another conspiracy, Sahi?
It does look that way, but I hope not. Like, we don't need a build up for a Tyson and Holyfield rematch if they're going to do it. If you're going to do it, just do it. We'll watch. It'll be funny. But we don't need the build up and the hype. It'll make it worse. Like, yeah.
Like game night at the nursing home.
Right.
All right. We'll leave these guys alone. Let's move on. Let's talk a little bit of football. Guys, the Carolina Panthers have traded now a 2021 6th round pick a second rounder, and a 4th round choice in the 2022 draft for former Jets 3rd overall pick in the 2018 draft, Sam Darnold. To start this conversation off, we'll make it really easy. We'll start with you, Richie. Who do you think won the trade?
Carolina by a mile, like genuinely. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still some draft picks, but Teddy Bridgewater is the epitome of a game manager, and they had to pay him, I think, $25 million. I'm not, the point being is he doesn't, he's not going to lead them to the future. They had 3 wide receivers that got 1,000 yards with Teddy Bridgewater. So they're taking a chance on Sam Darnold, but honestly, Adam Gase is a terrible, he was once considered the quarterback whisperer. But if you actually look at his career trajectory, he's done nothing. Ryan Tannehill looked terrible in Miami. He goes over to Tennessee and look at him now. I mean, borderline quarterback of the year type numbers, like realistically in the playoffs, doing great. And I'm not saying Sam Darnold's going to magically be great, but, with Adam Gase's track record with his previous quarterbacks, who knows? And for them, again, this is a free opportunity. And yes, I know this pick's involved, but this is a free opportunity to have a former 3rd round or 3rd pick of the draft, to try to see if he can make it out. Give him a year or two, because I think they're 7th this year. So it's not likely that they're going to get their guy. Like, they're more likely to get Mac Jones. And honestly, from what I'm hearing now, Justin Fields may be falling, as we discussed. So just the point being is, Fields is there, they'll probably take him. But I'm just saying, if it's like Mac Jones, like, not that big of a deal. Try next year possibly, see how Darnold pans out. You got Bridgewater as your starter. Again, 3,000-yard receivers. This is an opportunity to take a chance on a quarterback that doesn't have to be their 1st round pick. I don't see them picking quarterback because of this. It would be kind of weird unless Fields falls. Like, if Fields fell, I could see it. I could see them going for Fields. But outside of that happening, and we even talked about it last week, if Fields doesn't get drafted 7th, I said, then we're going to talk about discrimination and racism. So, Carolina, if Fields is there, you better take him. Otherwise, I'm going to have beef. But having said that, I don't see them taking a quarterback this year after trading, quite a few picks for Darnold. But to me, easily Carolina won this one. Why not? I get it for New York. They're drafting a quarterback. It's not like they did bad either. They got some free picks essentially because they're wiping the slate. But I see this as a huge win for Carolina because this is just a free chance to possibly have a kid who might be good. We'll see.
Sahi, and of course I'm paraphrasing as always, but Sam Darnold said to the press this week, it's never a good feeling to feel unwanted or like you're not a part of something anymore and they don't want you there anymore. Do you think that with the rough start that he had in New York, do you think this is an opportunity for Sam Darnold to be revitalized?
Be revitalized. I feel like he could put up better numbers. They have good talent in Carolina. But as far as like revitalized and having a great career, which means wins, you got to look at the division he's in. He left one of the most cupcake divisions to come down to where them boys is at, to be honest. He's not going to do a lot of winning as long as Tom Brady's around. So, to me, it's a lose-lose for everybody in this situation. The Carolina Panthers, they still got Bridgewater. They owe him $18 million. They picked up Sam Darnold's option, so that's another $15 to $18 million they're going to have to pay. So they got a lot of money tied up in the quarterbacks right now.
They got Tom Brady money between two.
Yeah. And they're not going to be able to trade Tom, what's his name? Bridgewater. Yeah, they're not going to be able to trade him, not this late in the game. So what are they? How are they going to really surround these guys with talent? I feel like the Jets should have hung on to Sam Darnold, maybe draft a generational talent like Kyle Pitts in the 1st round. What they have, the 3rd pick, the 2nd or 3rd pick?
Second pick. If they could have kept Darnold and got Kyle Pitts in there, then we're talking about the Jets maybe doing something. But they gave up their guy to get a rookie. Probably not going to be Justin Fields. Probably going to be the guy from BYU who's not ready. And he's going to look terrible. So it's just a lose-lose for both of these squads. I feel bad for Sam Darnold.
he seems like a good guy. He was a former #1 pick. And the Jets just threw him to the Wolves because, you know what I'm saying, he's got CS 2 times a year and Sean Payton. And they got to see Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. It's going to be tough for the Panthers.
Yeah, Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is the quarterback that we're referring to.
Exactly.
And
Zach
sure.
Wilson.
And so, I'll put it with what Sahi said one more time. If he can't, with 3 wide receivers who hit 1,000 yards with Teddy Bridgewater and a Christian McCaffrey, if he doesn't have a 4,000-yard season, he's never, like this year, he's never going to be good. He's never going to be, like, genuinely. Like, if he can't put up numbers on those weak defenses, except for Tampa Bay, then he can't get 4,000 yards, man, like, then Sam Darnold, like, this is the year for him to show something. And if he doesn't do it this year, he'll never be good, period.
Absolutely. All right. So now we're going to start this new tradition. We started this new tradition last week of throwing a wrench in the gears before we go to the break. We're going to go ahead and do that. Not much of a wrench in the gears because I feel like it needs to be talked about, and we don't shy away from doing that here at H2G Studios or on The Wire, as you know. So we all know that tragedy has struck Minneapolis, Minnesota again. With yet another police shooting and murder of a 20-year-old Dante Wright after a taser firearm mix-up. We're not going to get into the details of that. You can touch on it however you'd like, but mainly my question is, what are your thoughts on the organizations of the Minnesota Twins, the Timberwolves, and the Wild all shutting down business out of both respect for the Wright family and as we know, things have stirred up again because the Chauvin case is currently going on as we speak. Out of safety for the plans and players, fans, and staff. We went to Richie first last time. Sahi, we can start over with you.
I think that's just the appropriate thing to do with so much commotion and rioting, and you got so much going on in the city. It would be hard to drum up security for the games. So just shut them down, postpone them, wait for things to settle down. Things always settle down. It's an unfortunate situation and something I know we're all tired of talking about and seeing. And so I think that's the right thing to do. Just let it cool down, and then get back to reshaping and helping the community like they want to here in the future.
Richie, what's your take?
Yeah, I'm just going to say this. I don't know if people have seen the footage. If you have seen the footage, what's going on is basically the police officer is very close to the young man. The young man says an expletive to her and snuck out of his cuffs and tried to drive off. So she was trying to tell him, I'm going to tase you. I'm going to tase you. And she shot him with her gun. The cam was on, her body cam was on. And you could tell she was shocked. So I do believe truthfully that on some level, she meant to tase him. Now, and we can get into the, reasons some other time on actual H2G, not The Wire. This is sports. But having said that, let's move on to the actual topic, what we're discussing. This is the right call. I'm 100% with Sahi. I mean, from multiple reasons, out of respect for the family, but ultimately, with what's going on, the riots, let's discuss what the reality is. Right now, there's a lot of rioting. There's a lot of physical danger. Let's be realistic here. So I think it's prudent that they, it's a nice gesture to honor the family, but at the same time, the reality is that this is a safety thing, in my opinion. Minnesota, as we already know, based on what you just said, has clearly had issues with law enforcement and these types of incidents. So right now, people are very angry. People are upset, as they should be. So I think this was just kind of necessary. Whether or not this gesture, essentially would have happened, I think this is the right call because you can't risk people's lives right now. And right now, the nation and particularly the Minnesota area is in a state of, chaos, and as it should be. And, there needs to be a lot of reform, and I'm not going to get into the politics of that. But nonetheless, right now, it's not a safe place to be, particularly if you're Black.
Absolutely. And we'd be remiss to mention that here from The Wire, our thoughts, prayers, and energy are going out to the family of Dante Wright. And we wish you all the best. We're going to go to the break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little baseball, which we haven't done in a long time. A lot of controversy going on in the MLB. So we'll break that down for you. Then we're going to talk a little bit about, of course, the NBA. We got to get into it, and we'll touch back on our takes on what went down with WrestleMania. I was wrong. Go figure. You're watching The Wire. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right. So this is Gary43. He says, I feel like Justin is the reason this country has to put directions on shampoo. Do you even know what you're talking about, bro? No, I don't, Gary fucking 43. I have no idea. I don't even use shampoo. I just use 1 3-in-1 body wash, you bastard.
All right, this is from Karen45. How do you feel about being ranked sexiest man on your podcast when Tony looks like a barbecued Kermit the Frog?
Jesus Christ.
Wait a second. What? That sounds like a Tony rip. Why is Marvin?
That's a Tony rip. That's towards me?
Wow.
Does Christy think having a child on her lap makes her seem more likable? Also, get some sleep. You look tired. Thanks, Breezy. I'm trying.
Adam says, I see ratings must have been down. They recruited someone interesting.
Wow.
Oh.
All right.
Some burn on the rest of us.
Oh, I mean, thank you, Adam.
Ashley says, I watch the show a lot and I was wondering, are you all changing the name to RT2M? Richie talks too much. I don't know what to say, Ashley, other than I feel like I talk exactly as much as I should. So,
Yes. Oh boy. Margaret says, is it me or when Tony talks, do you get the feeling he's constipated?
Yeah. Well, that
What?
face right there doesn't really help you.
All right. Yes. Welcome back to The Wire. And while we're on the subject, make sure you're checking out the H2G podcast. It is on Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, and H2GPodcast.com. Not to mention anywhere you get your audio podcast. Variety show. We cover everything. We play games. And right now we're doing a great series on human trafficking. I recommend you check out the H2G podcast. Before we get started, fellas, I do want to send a shout out to my brother, an athlete, all-state wrestler, former state champion football player. He and currently serving the United States in the Navy, and he was injured on duty and is in the hospital and just underwent surgery yesterday. So love, prayers from H2G Studios, The Wire, and all of us out to Jake Duvall. You better sue my friend and my brother. Okay, let's get a rolling. I think we're going to start off with a little more football and then we'll move on. 3-time Super Bowl champ and now former New England Patriot Julian Edelman has officially announced his retirement after 11 years in Foxborough. The 34-year-old receiver did tell the press this week that he's always said, I'm going to play until the wheels fall off, and I guess they finally have. So first, we'll just go around the horn here. What are you guys' thoughts on Edelman calling it quits? I think we're at Richie.
Yeah, sure. I'm not going to go with calling it quits per se. To be very precise, he was cut. He was going to retire. So let me explain why he was cut. He was cut because he failed a physical. So the reason why New England didn't let him retire is so he could get the $2 million relief bonus. So so technically he was cut, but yes, he is retiring. It's the semantics. I just like to say I think it was a classy thing of New England to make sure he gets paid $2 million for not playing, basically, when they could have just let him retire and he get none of it. So having said that, 3-time Super Bowl champ, Super Bowl MVP, he's the little engine that could, man. You know, when we think of like prototypical wide receivers and we think of like the greatest wide receivers of all time, he's certainly never going to make that list, let's be honest. But having said that, he was a huge part of New England, and quite frankly, he's one of their better quarterbacks. I mean, I think he has 121 quarterback rating or something, you know what I mean? Like, 'cause they had those really random gadget plays. So, you know, Julian Edelman was like Tom Brady's little go-to. You know, he was the real Deion Branch. You know, Deion Branch was fantastic for him in his early career, but they traded Deion away because Deion wanted money. And so they got Julian. I believe they got him from Miami years ago. And so they got Julian Edelman, and he was a great slot receiver at the time. And man, did they ever make him look amazing. And not that he wasn't great, and he was great for his role. Probably one of the best slot receivers I've seen in my time. But you know, like it was something to watch. You know, he's one of those guys that consistently Tom Brady had nothing. But he always had Julian, and then he had the tight ends. And I'm not, you know, don't get me wrong, obviously once they got the tight ends, it was a little bit of a different game. But after Randy left, it was just Julian Edelman. You know, when you got guys like Hogan and like, you know, no name guys that like disappeared off the face of the earth, and then you got like 77-year-old Julian Edelman still catching footballs, you know, congrats to the guy. I think he did more with less, right? Like 7th round or undrafted, like the guy never was like some stark athlete. But, you know, he made the best of his career, and he honestly, I think he exceeded what people would have expected out of the guy. So congratulations, man. Well deserved.
All right, Sahi. Same question. I mean, what do you make of his retirement? But I know you, and I know the way your brain works. Is this the retirement of Julian Edelman, or do we have a Gronkowski thing working in the backfield here?
Yeah, I see where you're going. But I think this is the real deal. I think he's retiring. It would be cool. It would be cool to see him. I know he would love to reunite with Tom Brady. But we just got too many weapons out there. We wouldn't need him. Maybe later in the season, maybe towards week 8, week 9, somebody goes down. Edelman might get a phone call. You ready for this playoff run? He might come back. But as of now, like you said, the wheels have fall off. He's had so many injuries. He's been beat up. He's a little guy. He was a guy that wasn't afraid to go over the middle, make the tough catches. He even played punt return. And you've got to be a crazy son of a gun to return punts. And he did it at a high level. So that shows you he didn't have any fear going up in there. So his body probably took a big beating, and he's probably ready to retire. He had a great career. What can I say? He played with the GOAT, Tom Brady.
Yeah, well, we can't dispute that. We've already gone past disputing Tom Brady as the GOAT. Last question on Edelman. What do you think, and this is for both of you, what do you think it says that a guy at 34 years old has reached his physical peak for, you know, professional football, and then you reverse that number, 43-year-old Tom Brady is still out there throwing the football, and not to just Tom Brady. Nobody can do it like him, but there have been quarterbacks that make it into the later years that do it longer. What does it say about the wide receiver position and maybe the style of play of this individual?
Well, I'm going to go with the slot receiver specifically, because not the wide receiver position. The wide receiver position can go until they can go. I mean, Jerry Rice played till he's 42. Tim Brown played till he's 42. Now, a lot of the kids nowadays don't do that. But the point being is this has more to do with where Edelman was playing. He's playing up in the slot, in the middle of the field, getting tackled or getting hit by guys like Ray Lewis. So, of course, that's going to knock off years of your life. You know, it's just more so, again, slot receivers. And you never see a slot receiver get to the age of 36. It's just not a thing. You know, it's just like a running back. How often do you see a running back outside of Emmitt Smith get to 34 years old and still play in the league? Obviously, they're not getting hit to the same extent, but these wide receivers are also not 220 pounds, and they're not, you know, they're not designed to take that beating. They're usually smaller guys that are quick and have lateral movement. So, you know, I'm not surprised, again, that at 34 years of age, he failed a physical. You know, he got beat up, man. What was he, like 5'10", 170, something like that? Small guy.
Exactly.
That's your take as well?
Exactly.
I was trying to look it up in time. Oh man,
He's like 6 foot. I'm just playing.
I didn't realize this. I was looking up Jerome Bettis because I was under the impression that he was older than 30 when he retired, but he was 30 years old when he retired. So, point. Let's move on. He was my age. It was 2006, though. I guess that was some time. He's not a young spring chicken anymore. Okay. Before we hit baseball, we're going to talk a little bit extra because you've got basketball for us too. Let's talk baseball. Quite the controversy stirring right now. The Braves and Phillies game came down to an extremely controversial instant replay call on the winning play at the plate. For those of you who didn't see, Alex Baum of the Philadelphia Phillies slid into home, and from several angles that played multiple times on national television while the instant replay officials and umpire reviewed the footage for 5 minutes, guys. His foot never touched the plate. I've seen it from every one of the 7 angles that's out there. He drug it right through the chalk. But after the delay, the officials came back and said that there was no definitive proof that Baum was out. So I got a couple questions, guys. My first one is if what you're looking for is definitive proof that he was not safe at home, and none of these 7 angles that everybody else in the entire country and everybody in every locker room and bullpen of the MLB saw was not safe at home, what were we reviewing? What is the point of this review?
Yeah, I don't understand double review. There was 2 reviews on the play, so I don't know what to say other than I do agree that like if they do an ultimate like review box type thing, they need to pull the umps. And this isn't like an MLB thing. This is more like a sports thing in general. And the reason why I say this is basketball is notorious for this too. The referees and the umpires don't like to admit they're fucking wrong. Pardon the French. So there should be a third party separate from the regular crew that does these reviews. So that way they can be like, no, you're wrong. It happens way too often in the NBA. Guys are getting like bounced for like bouncing the basketball in an aggressive manner at the referee, stuff like that. Absurd things. And this is the same type of thing, right? They charged Iglesias with like 2 errors instead of saying they screwed up. Like, what else is there to say? This is the epitome of what's wrong with having a unionized refereeing, umpiring system, and then having no actual autonomy to do anything about it, right? They're at the mercy of the crew, and there's no like third party to like trump them. Like in the government, we have this things called checks and balances, and that's what needs to happen in modern sports. There should be a separate officiating crew, for reviewing purposes in these scenarios, and then I certainly think we would have seen a different outcome. That's my take on this.
Sahi, let's put you in the bullpen. Let's put you in the shoes of an MLB professional, and a play like this surfaces. And this isn't the only one, mind you. Earlier in the same game, we had an obvious lean in. And if you don't know what I'm saying out there, folks, it's when, a strike is coming and a guy reaches out. And this was from every angle, a lean in with the elbow to take that walk and to get a base. It should have been a strike. They reviewed it, came back, and they walked him. As an MLB player, Sahi, what would your thoughts be? What would your morale stance be?
As an MLB player?
Yeah, and as a fan, you can give both. But from the standpoint of those guys, in my head, I'm thinking about. I personally wouldn't want to keep playing. I'm like, what's the point if we're at the mercy of the umps? What are your thoughts?
It kind of takes, like you said, it would take kind of a little bit of the juice out of it. But as a player, I'm under the thought of, things happen. No matter what, you still got to go out there and do your job. And you shouldn't have been in that. I shouldn't have been in that position to make them have to review it. So I'm going to take that stance, or just get better next time, or try to do something to override it. But I can see how that could get frustrating. But the review system, I don't understand how they don't have it perfected yet. They need to, you know how Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, they have a Ask the Audience feature, and they get instant results just like that. You can just ask the audience, ask the crowd, what should the call be, and then get it. And then you can take the blame off the refs. If the fans call it bad, you could just blame the fans. So that would be a little bit easier, maybe. I don't know. But it's a touchy subject. I feel like Richie said, they should have some sort of third party, somebody in a booth looking at it and sending the calls down. But even then, it gets kind of dicey, because somebody could be in that third party's ear, like, if it's up to you, man, we're gonna put this money in your pocket and you grease the calls this way. So people could think like that. So it's all about, for me, it's all about just getting the call right on the field as best you can and try to correct it. And if you don't, hey, it's all in the game, right?
So I guess my question still stands, though. You know, what's the point of reviewing if this footage is this obvious? And we've got, obviously we've got biased refs and biased umps. Don't, like Richie said, don't want to admit that they're wrong. Why have a video replay and not just a discussion amongst the umps and refs? You know what I'm saying? What's the point? Because everybody else can clearly see, and players have been outraged, guys, and that's why I brought this to the table. It's not just the people in Atlanta or in Philadelphia that are discussing this controversy. Players and former players and veterans and coaches from all over the league are they've had enough. All right. Well, Richie, did you have something else?
No. I it is what it is at this point. I think I'm just so over umps and refs. It's just insane. I'm gonna just stop because I'm getting mad.
Fair enough. Get out of here. Get out of here, ref. All right, I'm done. Okay, so let's move on. I've got one more, and then Richie's brought a basketball story. We'll close it off with a wild card. All right, guys. So the 76ers. They are now tied with the Nets for number one in the East. Now, as we all know, the Nets did just lose to a very depleted Lakers team this past Saturday. Now, keep in mind that James Harden was out. Kyrie was ejected. We're not going to really get into why and what all happened there. Well, we can, but I'm not going to. My question for you guys, and we'll start with Sahi. Should the 76ers feel better about their position now that the Nets have lost to, a shell of the Lakers? What was his name? Was on the promo, because you don't have Anthony Davis, you don't have LeBron James. What are your thoughts, man?
No, they shouldn't feel better, because, like you said, James Harden wasn't playing. I wasn't aware that James Harden did play. Kyrie Irving got kicked out. Kevin Durant is still kind of nursing an injury, just getting back. So no, the Nets, they should just play their season and hope for the best. Because if they play this Nets team firing at all cylinders, they're going to be in trouble. But the only way they could is they just have to tighten up on their defense. That's whoever playing the Nets. They have to just play great defense and hope for the best. I think the Lakers got it figured out pretty good, as we saw. So you ain't got to worry about that. But the Nets, they've got an MVP caliber center, Embiid. He's playing great. They got a shot. I mean, I can't say that they're going to lose definitely, but I don't think they should feel better, because we haven't seen the Nets at their full potential yet.
The 76ers.
Yeah. Who did I say?
The The Nets. That was their opponent.
Yeah. The Nets aren't at their full potential.
No, he's saying the Nets.
Oh, yeah, I
aren't
got
at their
you.
full potential.
Yeah.
I got lost. Richie, what are your thoughts?
I'll say this. I'm just going to go into standings, and actually, it's kind of funny because Sahi's discussion is what we're going to have in a second. 76ers, Nets, and Bucks are all close together. The 76ers and Nets are officially tied, right? So while the Nets have not had Kevin Durant for 20 plus games, and they just got James Harden, 20 or 30 games ago, the 76ers, Ben Simmons has been out for almost 30 total games for the season. So they weren't at full potential either. Now, obviously, you have more superstars from the Nets, so there's more chemistry potential issues. But it's going to be interesting. Do I think Philadelphia should be, happy on their laurels that they're tied for first? No, of course not. But at the same time, in their brain, they think they're the best team, as they should, right? So they should be pushing further and pushing further. They should be trying to get further from the pack, further from the Nets, further from the Bucks, because they're only 7 games up on the 6th place team, right? When you think about where the standings are because of the shortened season, they could go from 1 to 8 real quick, and it's no different from the West. There's a narrative everyone loves to talk about that the West is better than the East, the West is better than the East. Well, in 8th place, they have a 26 and 25 team. The East have a 28 and 27 team for 8th. So you're talking basically both conferences verbatim within 9-game margins on all across the board. For instance, the Lakers, due to their injuries, are 5th right now. If we're going to be talking, in my opinion, we want to talk about a team right now. Utah is number 1 by a mile. The Phoenix Suns are number 2. I think that's more, kind of the whoa, I didn't see that coming. The 76ers and the Nets and the Bucks being the top 3, that's 1A, 1A, 1B, 1C. All of them have, potential to be the best team, and they're where they should be at the end of the day. We've been talking about the Nets as everyone has been because of the superstars on their team. But having said that, and we're about to get into it. So, I'm just going to change the topic. Let's go. We're switching it up. What I was going to say is I think the Nets are in trouble, to the antithesis of Sahi's point, because an Andre Drummond with no LeBron, no Anthony Davis scored 20 points on them in 24 minutes. Old man Andre Drummond, and I'm not saying he's bad. We've already had this discussion last week, but I'm just saying we also talked about LaMarcus Aldridge and what he was going to do for the Nets. Well, you know what he did for the Nets? He didn't guard Andre Drummond at all. And my point on why I'm laughing and why this is cause for concern for the Nets truly is if Andre Drummond because remember, we're talking about them winning a championship. Let's focus on the narrative here. So if they magically get past Milwaukee, who are all 7-foot big guys, and they get past, as Sahi said, Joel Embiid and that big boy, then they got to play the Lakers. I think Sahi and I are both on the same page with that. If they're going to play the Lakers and Andre Drummond just dropped 20 on them without Anthony Davis being there and without LeBron James, who are big guys, it's going to be problematic. And don't get me wrong, the Nets are not at their full strength, and that is to Sahi's point. But that recipe that I just saw is the concern. I don't care if they're firing on all cylinders and, like the 2016 Cavaliers, the 3 guys each average 40 points and they're at 120 and they get to 150 points a game. If you can't stop Andre Drummond with his 3 broken toes, his missing toenail, and no Anthony Davis and LeBron James, they're going to score 170 points. I mean, come on, man. I'm a little concerned for the Nets, but this isn't about the Nets. I just wanted to kind of mention that there's a lot going on. I want to hear Sahi's opinion in the playoffs. Who do you see? We still got a ways to go, but who do you see in the East as, potentials, and who do you see in the West as potentials? It doesn't have to be who's going to win, but who do you think are the contenders right now?
Yeah, the contenders right now for me in the East would be the 76ers, the Nets, and the Bucks. And you can't forget about the Miami Heat. Nobody was talking about the Heat. Yeah, nobody was talking about the Heat last year, and they made it all the way to the finals. So
with Victor Oladipo now.
Yeah. So they could make noise come playoff time because the game changes come playoff time. But I feel like if the Nets can get it together with James Harden, the only thing about that though is those guys have never led a team. All 3 of those guys, Irving, Harden, and Durant. So when it really comes down to it and they need it, I'm still not sold on it. So they could get bounced by the 76ers. Who knows? But in the Western side, Lakers, of course. I don't believe in the Clippers. But I think it's either between the Lakers and the Phoenix Suns. I really like the Phoenix Suns. But I just don't think they'll have quite enough. I think they're like 1 or 2 pieces away from controlling the Western Conference. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. The Utah Jazz are pretty good. I understand they're number 1 in the division.
Yes, quite
true?
a bit.
Yeah, that's
they're
true.
40 and 13.
Yeah.
They're number 1 overall in the NBA.
Woo! I'm sleeping on the Utah Jazz, but I don't know. It's just sometimes something about the Jazz, whenever they play playoff basketball, they kind of seem to lose it, in my opinion. So I'm looking at the Lakers and the Suns, and then those 3 beasts in the East.
The 3 beasts
really
in the East.
Yeah, to make some noise.
All right, Justin, how about you? Who do you think? Who you got, man?
My list looks kind of similar for the East. Pardon the train here for 1 second.
Choo, choo, choo.
I know, I got the window open. Shame on me. All right, so in the East, I think that the Nets could go. I think they've got a lot to work on. Maybe Sahi's right. Maybe there's some conspiracy going on. They're taking turns, taking breaks. I don't know, but they can't afford to, in my opinion, because, again, we still haven't, this is my concern with the Nets, we haven't really seen them play a whole lot of defense. We see what it looks like when their big 3 aren't around. Pieces just falling all over the place. 76ers, I think, if they don't choke again, could go all the way. And then in the West, I honestly am starting to drink some of what Sahi's pouring over there. I think maybe we're gonna get LeBron James healthy, comfortable with a nice rest. Anthony Davis with a nice comfortable rest and break before the finals, and then that with Andre Drummond and the team that they have right now and how they're still managing to stay afloat. I mean, that's my point. Comparing them to the Nets, the Lakers are staying afloat, whereas the Nets, they're a freaking wild card. I mean, they're not playing any defense. They're not trying to build a defense. So I could see maybe we wind up with Nets Lakers. I could see 76ers Lakers. I'm going to stick with Lakers in the West, and maybe the Heat. Don't want to sleep on them. Like Richie said, put some respect on it.
Put some respect on it. All right, so I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm going to say the 76ers. Here's why I don't believe in them. Doc Rivers is the coach. So next. Nets, why I don't believe in them. To Sahi's point, none of them have ever led a team to a championship. Next. Milwaukee Buzz, Giannis Antetokounmpo cannot shoot a 3-pointer. Next. All 3 teams that could win all have these huge glaring weaknesses. Now, obviously, I'd like to say the 76ers have the smallest one, and it's just a bias against the coach who can't seem to win and has lost up 3-1. He has lost 3 times in the NBA, which is a statistic no one else besides Doc Rivers will have the luxury, and emphasis on it, the luxury to lose 3-1 3 times and still be able to coach in the NBA. I want to talk side note here on this tangent. In the NFL, we talk about the Rooney Rule and that black coaches don't get a chance. Well, in the NBA, I'll tell you what, they get plenty of chance. Doc Rivers has way too many chances. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got to keep it real. The moment he got fired from the Clippers, he got hired by the 76ers. And I'm like, why? Did you not just see him choke? Like, are you kidding me? I'm shocked. So in the East,
I was just gonna say you can't put Pandemic P on Doc Rivers. He was atrocious.
Okay, that's fair. You know what? That's fair. Pandemic P. When you have an albatross like Pandemic P, how do you win? That's a fair point, Sahi. That's a fair point. Okay. You know what, Doc? I'm picking the 76ers in the East now, just for that, from Sahi. The West. Here's what I'll say. I'm with Sahi in that Utah. I think we all are. It's one of those things with Utah. You're like, damn, they're 40-13. But here's the thing with Utah, and it's to Sahi's point. I have watched many of their games. Donovan Mitchell's a stud. Rudy Gobert is the best defensive center and defensive player in the league, even over Joel Embiid, although he's close. But the reality is they don't have enough help. They're playing great team defense. They are. But at the end of the day, can they keep up with the firepower of, say, the Nets? No. Can they keep up with the firepower of the Lakers and the Suns? Probably not. And then they're going to get bullied by the Denver Nuggets. So to me, they're not, even though they're number one, I have no respect for them whatsoever. So I'm going to say, I think the Suns, I love what Chris Paul is doing. I mean, look at him. He goes to the Thunder. Everyone's thinking they're going to be terrible because they just traded everything. He gets them to the playoffs and takes them 6 games. You know, he's phenomenal. He goes to the Suns, they're the second best team in the West right now. That's super cool, man. Like, mad props. Like, the best true point guard since Magic Johnson. You know, like, obviously you got Steph Curry, but he's not a real point guard. I mean, he's a scoring point guard. Like, people are sleeping on Chris Paul's greatness, and it won't be until his career is over that we really recognize what he's accomplished and how tremendous lockdown defensive player, a 2012 machine. He's phenomenal and a leader. Like, that's an important thing. Like I said, you go to Houston, they almost beat. It was the same thing. How you gonna win with James Harden like pulling you down? And they almost won, and the only reason they didn't win is he tore his ACL. Otherwise, they probably would have won. I mean, he's an incredible leader. I love what he's done for Phoenix. It's a super young team, sans the old man. Lakers, of course. Now, don't get me wrong, they're gonna have to do something right now. I mean, they're fifth, and if these boys don't, get healthy and start playing, they might miss. I mean, they're only 6 games up. 6 games up on the Memphis Grizzlies. Don't get me wrong. If that were to happen, I'm sure LeBron would make it happen and get back in and make sure they're winning. But they gotta start playing. Like, they're starting to dip here. Although maybe they're looking for number 6 so they can play the Clippers, right? Make sure there's no excuses. So that could be it. And then I'm going to say Denver. To me, that's the other team. Denver is a beast team, and they added what's his face, Aaron Gordon. So they got a new stud, 26 years old, phenom. Who knows, man? They could be a big mess. And now you don't have Dwight Howard on Jokic. You do have Andre Drummond, but we'll see. I mean, to me, I think, honestly, truthfully, Denver is probably the one matchup the Lakers would struggle the most against. I'm not saying they'll lose, but I think that's their biggest obstacle in the West. So it could be any of those 3 teams. But let's kick it off because Justin has the fun question. I'm really excited about this one.
The wild
had
card.
to throw that in. The wild card. You already spoiled it earlier, though. We know what it is.
You know what? That's the thing, though. We can only do this really like 2 shows out of the year, the show before and the show after WrestleMania, right? I mean,
that's right.
and then when we do our GOAT conversation. So I did break it up a little. First of all, I think everybody except for myself, I forget who I picked, was right about who we picked in the Universal Championship match. But Sahi, my question for you, this weekend, WrestleMania, huge event. They did a 2-nighter. They had the Hall of Fame earlier in the week. I'm asking you, which of these 3 do you think was the bigger induction into the Hall of Fame? We had the British Bulldog, rest in peace. We had NWO, which gives Hulk Hogan his 2nd Hall of Fame entry. And then we also had the masked man that scared nightmares into my life for a long time, Kane, finally got his Hall of Fame spot. Which of those 3 is the biggest for you?
Biggest for me, that's easy. That's the new world order. I don't know how many times as a kid I did that little theme song just walking around. You know what I'm saying? That was my childhood right there, the new world order. That was huge. That just brought back a moment of time for me to like really think like, wow, like I grew up through that era. It was amazing. And to see it, you know what I'm saying, get that Hall of Fame nod is amazing. And it's great for Hulk Hogan, the legend of the sport.
Awesome. All right, Richie, there were 2 nights full of matches. There was a rain delay. We had fans back in the stadium for the first time in a year and a half. It was a huge event. For you, what was the highlight of the entire WrestleMania weekend?
Oh, okay. Well, side note, I'm gonna throw out Kane. I think Kane, because the NWO is more WCW, but I love that Sahi's right. It just Kane had 1,400 televised matches. People, the next closest person is Randy Orton at 900. He'd have to wrestle 8 more years every Monday night to catch Kane's record. Back to your point. To me, this was crazy. There was some. I think night 1 was way better than night 2. Amazing matches, amazing, and I was so glad we talked about it. Bobby Lashley, so glad he won. But to me, the match that I loved, even though I wasn't thrilled with the ending, I like what they're going with it. The Universal Championship, that was incredible. That was probably my favorite triple threat. That might honestly, when I really sit down and think about it, it might be my favorite match I've ever seen. It was the drama, the incredible wrestling, like the 3 of the best wrestlers in the business. And man, the whole time it looked like Daniel Bryan was going to just straight win. Then they were teasing Edge should have won. And then they had the big dog come out on top, which, you know what, quite frankly, even though like I thought, you know, I want the other narratives, that's the best way to go. He is your franchise. He is your top heel. He's the big dog. Why would you not want him to not win in the silliest, most ridiculous bullcrap way ever and pin both men? That was the triple threat. That was the match of WrestleMania. That is how you give a middle finger to the fans. Night 2, every heel won the match. There was nothing to cheer about if you're a fan, right? Every bad guy won. That was beautiful, and that was the cherry on top, the triple threat.
The mute monster got me. I'm going to agree. I think it's time to for the WWE fans and the people that are what we call marks that understand the backside of things to recognize Roman Reigns and not just for the storyline's sake, which was
head of the table.
He's the head of the table. What did he say? He wasn't recognized. He said something similar to that.
Acknowledge your chief.
Yeah, acknowledge me. Acknowledge the man. Give him his credit because he has done some incredible things in his career, and he didn't get the push. He didn't get the support or the recognition when he was a face. They hated him, just like you said, the John Cena effect. So this was a cool storyline. I had to catch up in a flash because I didn't watch all season long. But man, being a childhood fan of Edge, it was hard to not just want him to win. And I mean, his acting is so good. His
evil, angry eyes, like the way he looked like he was going to murder Daniel Bryan for like doing the yes lock when he had him with, oh my,
they both had him in the yes lock. Yeah.
So good.
But for me, and I'll answer both questions. I think one of my favorite moves to do on my brothers on the trampoline was the bulldog, the British bulldog. So I'm glad that he got his nod into the Hall of Fame. Rest in peace. And I will say his son looks a lot like him. I mean, could pass
remarkably like Davey. Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, the British Bulldogs are still alive. No, and for match of the weekend, since you took the Universal Championship, I'm actually going to give it to Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks. I love the match.
That was a banger.
They are both incredible women, and I love that we've got to see the evolution of that, and you'd be wrong to not recognize that calling them divas and treating them the way they were in the early storylines was wrong and discriminatory. And the fact that not only have they come a long way, but they've made a point of it. And then they put on one of the best wrestled matches of the weekend, in my opinion, between Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks. And I'm glad they gave it to Bianca Belair because that hair is awesome.
Did you see that whip when she whipped Sasha? Her rib was bleeding. That wasn't fake, people. Yeah. She hit her. And if you haven't seen it, guys, you can download Peacock. You get a 7-day trial. You can watch what we're talking about. It's worth it, guys. Just watch it. Watch it and tell me at the end of the 6 hours total that you didn't enjoy it. All right. Bianca Belair, like that military press that she caught Sasha, walked her up the steps and shucked her. She is a grown ass woman, man.
You know how hard it is it's not easy to just military press 120, 130 pounds. I mean, she's got muscles, so she can't be less than 135.
I'd say she's probably 135.
Yeah,
right
I mean
there.
that's a feat anyways. But to do it to a human, just so
while walking
up the stairs. So it's impressive stuff. Congratulations to all. Thank you guys for watching The Wire. We promise our wild card will be different than wrestling next week, but we had to cap off WrestleMania weekend. Make sure you're checking out the H2G podcast and The Wire. All of our previous episodes available at h2gpodcast.com, Facebook and YouTube. All you got to do is search H2G podcast, and then make sure you put the quotations around us, but find us on Spotify and anywhere that produces audio podcasts for The Wire this week. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, we had to do WrestleMania. Come on,
One more time. Next week we'll do something. Sorry, Sahi. I know you haven't watched in a while.
It's all good.